Welcome to the Startempire Wire Founders Podcast, where we make entrepreneurial founders a top priority. Each episode features risk takers, business builders, community shapers, institutional and government supporters in our local startup ecosystem. Tune in weekly to hear all about what's happening with the movers and the shakers of Southern California's Inland Empire and beyond. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Founders Podcast. Today we are with an IE veteran, Eugene Valdez, who is running currently the CEO to Rainmaker Podcast, but also, for years and years, ran his business, The Loan Doctor. We're going to talk about his story. He's going to give us a little introduction about who he is. Then we're going to get right into it. So how are you doing today, Eugene?
I'm good, Darius. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show. Hope I can keep people entertained.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you. So tell us about who you are, where you grew up at, and then how you got into where you are today with, doing the podcast that you're doing, but include your other story, the rest of the story in there.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Darius, because I just recorded an episode for my podcast, which airs October the 31st in recognition of Hispanic Month.
Yes.
And I featured 5 successful Hispanic-owned businesses in the Inland Empire, of which I consider myself one of them because I'm originally from, my parents were from Mexico.
Yes.
So, and in that episode, it goes in great detail my background. But for your program and your question,
yes,
I was in the corporate world as a commercial banker for many years here locally in Ontario. I worked for banks like Citizens Business Bank, Wells Fargo, etc. And I learned the money game. And I decided that there was an opportunity for me because the majority of the businesses that applied, regardless of their ethnicity, but even more so because of their ethnicity, were not getting their loans approved. And so if 10 businesses applied, 7 would be turned down and 3 would be maybe approved. But then the light bulb went on and said, what are those other 7 going to do?
Yeah.
And so I decided to switch careers, start my own business, and specialize in working with companies to help them raise the financing that they were unable to do it on their own.
Cool.
And I knew the game. I knew the money game, and I knew how the bankers walked, how they talked, because I used to be one. So I just changed sides of the desk. And rather than being paid a salary, I could pay fees from clients.
That's cool. When did you start? What was the year?
Excuse me?
When did you start? What year?
That was that particular company was about 8 years ago.
Okay.
But I had another company that I started, which was the Claremont Advisory Company, that didn't do as much as the Loan Doctor Associates did.
Yes.
But the Loan Doctor was kind of a spin-off of that company. But
yes,
the target market was the same: small business owners trying to raise capital to take their business to the next level. Don't have time to hunt for their own money, need an expert, a pro to do that.
Right.
And I believe I had all the credentials, and it turned out to be true because that business has flourished many years to come.
That's great. So tell us about a few businesses, during that time that you helped, and, how they came out, successful on the other side.
Well, I remember one business which was women-owned, who was having difficulties with her bank.
Yes.
Her business was growing, and she had an existing line of credit and had gone to the bank to ask for increases in the line, the size, to support her growth, and they had denied her. even though she was a loyal customer.
Wow.
And so through word of mouth, advertising, referrals, I don't exactly remember how I made the contact with her, but the basic result was this, or the basic program was this.
Yes.
I met with her, listened to her story, said, I get it. We determined what would be the size of line of credit that she would need.
Yes.
To support her growth.
Yes.
We incorporated that into what I call a strategic business plan.
Okay.
I then contacted many lenders. This is my client. This is what she's looking for. And of course, a lot of them, even me as a professional, would say, we're not interested. That's okay.
Yeah.
I kept looking and looking until I found 3 or 4 lenders that were interested. We received proposals from those 4 institutions. I helped her pick the best one. She got the money. She used the money to expand, and she flourished.
Great. That's great.
We had a fantastic year,
man.
Which happens quite frequently.
Yeah, yeah. So you're really good at helping these people find the capital they need, or find the people who would lend to them in that capacity.
Well, I believe so, because I put my time in various. I think I'm an expert at it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm dealing with this stuff every day, and the average company owner might be looking for money once a year, once every 2 or 3 years. So they're not professionals at it.
Mm-hmm.
And their results are going to show it. They're going to get a bad loan. They're going to be, do a bait and switch on them, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, the answer is yes. And it's because I was in the trenches.
That's right. That's awesome. So you're working with people who are already making revenue, not like early pre-revenue startups. Those people, the people who are, what tier level of people are you working with?
Yeah, for me, I mean, there's plenty of people that deal with startups.
Yes.
But for me, the ones that have been in business at least a couple of years is the best market, because they understand the importance of capital and cash, because they've gone through it. They've gone through payroll. They understand what taxes are. They just have a different perspective. And so that's what I focused on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have those people in our audience as well. So from pre-revenue till, several people have been funded already. Yeah. So all the way across the board. Let me ask you, that kind of leads into, the title of your podcast, CEO to Rainmaker. Tell us about that.
Well, I had been fortunate to be very successful at the Loan Doctors and Associates, Inc. I made a lot of money, had some clients pay me some heavy fees, but it was all earned. I provided the solutions that they were looking for. Mm-hmm. But I was focusing on companies that could afford to pay me.
Yes.
And so I was focusing on larger companies, maybe 10 to 50 million in annual sales. Mm-hmm. The companies that were doing less than 10 million sales actually needed me more for what I did, but they could not afford to pay me because they didn't have the revenue to support that.
Right.
So it wasn't that I ignored them. I had sympathy for them, but I couldn't do it for free, and they couldn't afford to pay me.
Right.
So the birth of CEO to Rainmaker was to say, okay, listen, you're at a stage of your life where you don't need a lot more money. It's now time for you to give back. Mm-hmm. And so it's time to give back to your community that paid you all these fees over all these years, which help you to live where you live and send your kids to good schools, etc. It's time to give back. And so the podcast industry, for those of you who follow your shows and are also podcast hosts, podcast hosts,
yes,
realize that there's no charge to listen. And so I was then going to give back by providing the same information that I was providing these larger private sector companies to the smaller guys at no price, no charge, the same information.
Love it.
And that was my way of giving back to the community. And that's why I started the podcast, is because there are more companies in the Inland Empire less than 10 million than there are greater than 10 million. It is the hugest market in the Inland Empire in terms of size.
Wow. The Inland Empire startup ecosystem industry is tremendously fragmented. A few top-tier hubs, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, are well covered by media, events, and data platforms. Finding reliable information relevant to startups or the tech industry in the Inland Empire is extremely difficult. As a result, startups can't scale fast enough. Investors are having a hard time finding the right deals, and corporates can't find the right companies to partner with for their innovation activities. Startempire Wire, the leading Inland Empire startup publication, is providing the Inland Empire startup ecosystem with the most accurate, engaging business and financial data, events, and news. Our reach of entrepreneurs, C-level executives, angels, VC investors, startup employees, key management at innovative corporates, and big tech is the solution for your B2B or B2C needs. As we build out our platform, we're looking for partners. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground level. If you're looking to align yourself with the local and growing startup and tech ecosystem of the Inland Empire, we have created the platform to get your name noticed and the opportunity for you to grow the recognition of your brand. Contact us today for availability and pricing options. We look forward to our partnership with you. Yeah, no, it is a huge target market. Can I ask you, when people listen to your podcast, what should they expect? What type of content are you putting on your podcast?
Well, I've done 52 of them.
Okay.
And the majority of the content is educational from a standpoint that they're structured in a way that they can increase the level of their executive skills. They're sort of how-tos.
Okay.
How to do this, how to do that, how to do this, how to do that. And it's practical information that they can use the next day.
That's so great.
So, and sometimes I bring on guests. Sometimes I share the information myself personally based on my own journey, because not only am I a podcast host, but I'm also a business owner. So I understand what they're going through.
Right.
So that was the mission statement of the CEO to Rainmaker. That's the content. I started it and I continue to do what I said I was going to do. And I know there's a market out there for areas, because these are the same people that when I was with banks, I was in a sales capacity. I was required to go out into the community and find companies for the bank to loan money to provide services.
Okay.
And in the process of interviewing them, talking with them, I realized there are so many things that they need to be aware of.
Yeah.
That as a banker, that's not my job to do that.
That's right.
But as a podcast host, it is my job to help them become healthier companies and flourish.
And flourish. I love that.
Let me share one statistic with you.
Please.
Many people know this.
Yes.
The SBA has published statistics that indicate if 10 businesses were started today, by the 5th year, 5 of them, 50%, will be out of business. By the 10th year, 70% or 7 will be out of business. which means only 3 businesses out of those original 10 will be around to start their 11th year.
Wow.
That is a mortality rate, which is very, very sad.
That's stunning.
But it is controllable.
Okay.
It's fixable.
Right.
And one word does it: education.
Education. That's great. So from the beginning of your podcast, when you first started it, till today, how has it changed? Did you begin, because I know you're always probably adjusting, making different, ideas, or taking, ideas and iterating your podcast. Have you iterated on direction you were going in the beginning till now?
Yes.
Okay.
Like anything else, I mean, a podcast is almost like you have your own radio show.
Yes.
Okay. And it's almost like acting.
Oh, that's true.
So you have to learn the ropes. But in answer to your question, one of the things that I realized is that today's small business owner is so inundated. They're stressed out. They don't have a lot of time. So they're going to gravitate to something that's practical, that's quick. So
yes.
One of the things I determined is that I would keep my episodes short, no more than 30 minutes, because they don't have the time to listen to anything longer than that.
That's true.
And it also loses their attention. And number 2, it can't be boring, because business can be boring if you let it be boring.
That's true.
So I learned to inject humor in my podcasts and to make them fun to listen to, so that I could give my listeners the reason to come back.
That's very good.
So that's what I did. Made it funny, made it simple, made it short.
Love it. I'm actually taking some ideas from you right now.
Good.
All right. So
and it's free.
I know, right? That's awesome. Thank you. Okay. So what would you say you're at, with regard to your needs to take your podcast to the next level? So you're at one level right now. If you were, projecting out into the next, 6 months, you want to be at another level. What are those current needs to take you to the next level?
Well, everything that I do is like any other business. From the podcast standpoint, any podcaster will tell you the same thing. Everybody wants more listeners.
Yes.
Everybody wants more of their episodes to be downloaded.
Yes.
So I'm doing everything in my power from the standpoint of the content, of the marketing, to create and maximize the number of downloads. So I'm hoping that by the end of December of 2023, that I will have doubled the number of listeners that I have today.
That's a good goal.
And if I do that, I may need another editor, because I do have an editing company.
Yes.
I might need more beefed up social media marketing to get my word out.
Yes.
Which is my weak spot.
Right.
And I have to continually go into the laboratory and figure out content that's interesting to my target market.
Okay.
It's like the restaurant that keeps serving you the same stuff, right?
Right.
After a while, you say,
get a little tired of
that place. It's always the same stuff,
That's true.
Right? So when they come up with a new item, you go, wow, they used to have this. Let me try this. Oh, now this is good. I'm going to keep coming back.
That's a great analogy.
Coming back.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Okay, so let's say in the next 2 months, what are your top 2 short-term goals for the next 2 months?
For the next 2 months, I'd like to increase my downloads by 500.
About 500. Okay.
which I think is doable.
Yeah.
In October, I have a tremendous podcast schedule set up.
Awesome.
I'm featuring, it's National Hispanic Month.
Oh, yes. I saw that.
And I am featuring 5 successful Hispanic-owned businesses in the Inland Empire.
I'll be tuning in.
Because we don't have enough of minority-owned, women-owned businesses that are showcased and highlighted for their tremendous accomplishments. They could just get lost, and they don't.
True.
They're not getting their kudos that they need.
Yeah.
So this month gives these 5 companies an opportunity to tell their story, where they came from, what they're doing, what their best practices is. And I'm very proud of this month. And I'm hoping that month will skyrocket.
Yeah. Okay.
My downloads, if I get enough social media marketing behind those months.
That's true, man. Social media is the place, right?
Yeah.
And
I have a wonderful lady who is extremely talented that helps me with my posts on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Oh, great.
But in order to hit a critical mass in terms of downloads, you need to take it to another level. You need other ways to get listeners to discover, the word discoverable.
Yeah, the distribution.
Discover your podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my biggest frustration, Barry. That's why I'm thankful that you threw me a bone here, is that I can say, just listen to it.
Yes.
If you don't like it, my bad. Don't come back. I understand. Right. I didn't give you enough value, but at least give me a chance.
Right.
I believe that once they start listening, they'll say, hey, this is good stuff. It's short, sweet, to the point. This will help me in my business. That's what I want.
No, absolutely. And, LinkedIn is a great platform. Every one of these platforms, you're going to have to pay for them a little bit. And I haven't run any paid advertising, but that may be a consideration too, if you really want to blow up, right? I mean, I don't know. Like have you considered paid advertising?
No, but you're the third person that told me that.
Yeah.
And so, I'm getting, it's really, it's the same with any business owner.
Right.
You're in the podcast business too.
Yes.
But regardless of whatever kind of business, you always have this thought in your mind. What are they trying to sell me? Do I really need this?
Right.
And everybody I talk to in terms of moving the needle for my listeners has a slightly different view of how to do it.
Right.
And they think theirs is the way.
Right.
And of course, they want to get paid.
That's true. Yeah.
So which one do you pick?
Well, I mean, in particular, I'm really referring to the social media platform wants you to run an ad on their platform because you'll get a greater reach that way with their ads, but you got to test it and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
And I have a distribution list I'm going to give you after this podcast because there's a lot of different places you can put posts for free. I'll shoot that over to you because I think that would help. And if you get your person to use that might help.
Yeah. Well, there is, maybe I'm just too close to the situation, but I believe that is my content the greatest super duper? No. Is it the worst? No, but it's good and it's applicable. It's street smarts.
Yes.
School of hard knocks. I've been through it.
Right. Experience and wisdom.
So if you told me, hey, Gene, I got your name. I want to take my podcast to the next level. What do I do? I would tell it straight to your face. This is how I think you should do it. Now, you may think I'm full of what to do stuff like that. Or you might talk to somebody else and they may say something completely different. But you're only going to listen to someone who's actually been through it.
That's so true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So that's your first goal. What is your second goal for the next? You want to really blow it up on the listeners, or another 500 listeners in the next 2 months. What would be the second goal in the next 2 months?
To obtain maybe 4 or 5 corporate sponsors that are willing to do ads on my podcasts.
Yeah,
because I'm not into podcasts to make money.
Right.
I just want to cover my operating costs.
Okay.
And my operating costs are attorney's fees.
Yes.
And, Microsoft renewal, cell phone,
right,
editing, marketing.
Yes.
It adds up.
It does.
And I'm just looking for a few corporate advertisers who see a connection between the mission statement that I'm trying to accomplish, which is really taking into consideration diversity and inclusion. Yeah. And maybe this meshes well with their corporate purpose. And they'll say, you know what? I'd like to be affiliated with this company. They're doing things that are meeting our mission.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do, is recruit some big, they don't even have to be big. They could just be companies that want to do some ads. It's an interesting thing that I read, that somewhere between 60 to 65% of podcast listeners are more inclined to buy a product or service from the podcast they listened to that was advertising this particular service, as opposed to TV ads, radio.
Really?
Yes.
I can see why, because podcasters have a more, it almost feels like you have a closer connection to your audience, or the people who I listen to, the podcasts that I listen to, I feel more, close to those people, you know what I mean? And like, this is I can see why they would want to buy more. That's a real good, no, I didn't even know that percentage, but that's a real cool.
It's very high. It's very high. It's because they trust the host.
Yeah.
And they assume that the host has vetted some of these vendors and they're the real deal, which I would.
Right.
And so it is forecasted that the amount of ad dollars spent via podcasts and the podcast industry is going to skyrocket in the next 3 or 4 years as companies realize that this is a tremendous vehicle that we have ignored, that we should be advertising on. And it's just not business education. As you know, there's all kinds of genres for there's music,
lifestyle, sports, everything,
mysteries, novels, how-tos, news. There's many of them, but upwards to 100 million people a year are listening to podcasts now.
Podcasts have really blown up. And we're on a podcast right now.
Exactly. And the population is 330 million, and 1/3 of them, and it's forecasted to grow, are already listening to podcasts.
Wow. Love it. I love it.
So it's the industry of the future.
Yes. Okay. I really, so people who are listening, if you really, go check out Gene's podcast. We're going to get him to give you all the locations in a few minutes, but consider sponsoring and becoming a partner with Gene as well too. So we got your short-term goals. Let's talk about long-term goals. Where do you plan to be in the next 3 years, 5 years, and then maybe 10 years?
In the next 3 years, what I'd like to be is that I have a critical mass of listeners, loyal listeners. I'm never going to be Joe Rogan. I don't want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to be able to touch and help as many business owners as I can. And
Okay.
I measure that in terms of downloads and listeners. So in the next 3 years, I'd like to have about maybe between 5 to 10,000 loyal listeners.
Okay.
At some point, I might, if my kids are interested, maybe they can carry on the tradition for me.
Yeah.
Zig
Ziglar has that, like that. Zig Ziglar does that.
Yeah.
He passed away, but his kids are doing it.
Right. And as you know, the podcast industry is so unique that all of your episodes are copyrighted. Right. They're in the archives. And so my goal is to continue to grow, maybe turn the business over to my kids if they're interested in the long term, maybe 5 to 10 years from now.
Yes.
And the greatest thing for me, Barry, is for someone to send me a text or an email or a letter or a phone call and say something like, "Thank you so much. Your little show made such an impact on my life. I used so many of these little pearls of wisdom and it helped me.
Yeah.
And now my business is doing better. My kids are doing fine. I have a good lifestyle. I'm not stressed out living paycheck to paycheck. And it's because you were there."
That's awesome. Yeah.
That gives you a meaning in life, does it not?
It does. Absolutely. And feedback like that, it really, it helps you to keep going too, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important. And I think I've mentioned this on other podcasts with other interviews that I had. Feedback from the audience is important, because sometimes you're creating content on a regular basis, but you're not hearing back from your audience yet. People are listening.
I'm not getting enough of that. You're very astute. I'm not getting enough feedback.
Yeah. People are listening to it, but they don't give feedback. So yeah, I mean, I made that observation and I'm making it again. So listeners, go listen to the podcast and give feedback. We as creators love to create the content, and we see the numbers, but we always want to put a face with the number. We want to put a face or a voice or a testimony with the number.
Exactly. That's 100% with you on that. It's all because really the podcast exists in my mind strictly for the listeners.
Yes.
If I'm not creating value, they don't need me.
Right.
And if I'm not creating value, I don't even want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So if you could just tell me, you don't talk much about this. Right. I really think if you could come up with a couple of episodes on this topic, that would be very helpful. I could do that in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely.
But like you say, I'm not getting the feedback.
Yes.
But I know they're out there.
They're out there.
The downloads.
You see the numbers, right?
Yeah, I see the numbers.
That's so true. Yes. I love that. So on that, where can they find the CEO to Rainmaker Podcast? Where can they subscribe and download it? And then where can they give you feedback on all three of those levels?
Okay. Well, number one is they can contact me via email. And I use my loan doctor email. So that's evaldez@theloandoctor.loans.
Awesome.
They can contact me, and they can do that anytime.
Okay.
They can text me or call me, 909-230-0024. I answer my own phone. I'm not a big shot. I'm a little shot who wants to be big someday. To access the podcast has a dedicated website, which is www.ceo2 RAIN, M like in Mary, KR, it's abbreviated, .com. Has all the episodes. Or there's a link, https://CEO to Rainmaker, spelled out fully, CEO to Rainmaker .buzzsprout.com. With that link, that will bring them to all of the episodes.
Okay.
And you're so correct. I just need feedback.
Yeah. You're in iTunes and all the big ones as well, right?
All the big ones: Apple, Google, Spotify, all of them.
Awesome. That's perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes, and please go check out the CEO to Rainmaker podcast that Eugene has been really pushing out. And, I'm actually going to go subscribe. I hadn't subscribed yet. I saw you. I was like, oh, he's doing some awesome stuff. I want to get him on the podcast. But I'm going to go listen to all of your episodes, and I'll give you feedback as well. But ladies and gentlemen of the audience, y'all go give him some feedback.
I appreciate the feedback, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Don't matter.
Absolutely.
Because things can be changed. And at this particular time, I don't know if I said this already or not. Like, if I did, I apologize. But
no worries.
Most podcasters are dealing on a national perspective. I'm just interested right now with the Inland Empire.
Local.
Inland Empire businesses. I want to help them either through the podcast, or if they're interested in growing and they need financing,
yes,
I can help them with that piece. But that goes beyond the scope of CEO to Rainmaker, because obviously the episodes are free.
Right.
But if they were interested in hiring a professional, that business is still open.
Yes.
I'm willing to do that.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, I do thank you for coming on today, Eugene. Ladies and gentlemen, go check out Eugene Valdez, CEO to Rainmaker podcast. Can they connect with you on LinkedIn or anywhere else online?
Yes. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. CEO to Rainmaker has its own LinkedIn page as well as Facebook.
Awesome. All right. So connect with him on LinkedIn, connect with him through the email. He's giving you his cell phone number. Give him some feedback, and tune in next time. We publish this podcast every Tuesday, every Thursday of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for listening to today's podcast, the Founders Podcast, and check out Eugene Valdez online. All of the information's in the show note. Until next time, have a great day. Peace.